The movie begins at a train station. After patrolling the station, Joe, the train guard, receives a rejection letter. Annoyed, he crumples the paper and dunks it on his locker. Suddenly, the train supervisor comes into the scene and says that one of their train guards is sick and could not do his duty later that night. Joe complains about the situation and reasons that he's tired and has just finished his shift. While the supervisor encourages him to do the job, he sees Ellen in the background. Joe thinks that the consolation of doing the job is he can spend more time with his unrequited love, Ellen. Quickly, Joe makes the decision and commits to the overnight duty. Boarding the train, Joe greets all the passengers and starts inspecting all the passengers' tickets. He asks the blonde lady for her ticket. Unfortunately, the blonde lady could not find her ticket after looking through her things. Although the blonde lady initially seems annoyed, she quickly takes her money and pays for it. While continuing the inspection, Joe blushes when he sees his crush, Helen, and possibly wants to crush his hormones on her on the train. To start a conversation, Joe approaches her and initiates small talk. Suddenly, Joe asks Ellen if she wants to have a drink after the shift. In fear of his hormone advance, Ellen excuses that she doesn't think any more bars are open after the shift. To hide his broken heart, Joe proceeds with his job to end the awkward situation. The scene shows a shot of the full moon as the train moves to its destination. Suddenly, a loud noise travels through the entirety of the train. To know the cause, Joe carefully walks toward his workmates to ask what happened. As he tries to open the door, the radio suddenly rings, and the driver says that they hit something on the road and advises the passengers to remain calm and stay in their seats. The driver comes out of the train to find the thing that hit their train. As he opens the door, Joe sees that Ellen's trolley is all messed up. Trying to help, he tries to lift the trolley, but cannot do so. Ellen advises Joe to check on the remaining passengers, for them to remain calm. Meanwhile, the passengers panic as Joe tries to consolidate them. As Joe helps the passengers, he reassures everyone that everything will be all right. Fortunately, after inspection, the driver discovers that they hit a wild deer, which is now stuck to the wheels. The driver tries his best to remove the deer from the wheels, but he doesn't find luck because it is too heavy. Suddenly, he hears a sound from his back. An unknown hairy creature jumps out of the bushes and starts mauling him. Meanwhile, Joe sees that the annoying girl passenger is smoking a cigarette. Joe approaches her and says she's not allowed to smoke inside the train. While the annoying girl does not care, he forcefully takes her cigarette to stop her. At this point, Joe and Ellen think the driver is running late and taking too much time inspecting. To check if he's okay, Joe takes his flashlight and screams the driver's name in hopes of reaching him. With no response, Joe looks outside for any signs of the driver. Still not finding anything, Joe contacts the authorities to seek help. However, the authorities say that it will take them 4 hours to get to them because of the heavy storm. Knowing about the information, Joe informs the passengers of their situation. The passengers are distressed and think that waiting for 4 hours is ridiculous. The passengers ask Joe if the driver could fix the problem. Joe confides that the driver is missing and they could not trace any signs of him. The scary information drives the passengers even more crazy. While all of them argue, a selfish middle-aged man nicknamed Mr. Selfish comes to the scene to break the ice. He suggests they should go outside and just walk to the next station. The majority of the passengers agree and start preparing themselves for the walk. Mr. Selfish tries to open the door outside, but he cannot do so because he doesn't have the keys. However, Joe, doing his job as a train guard, reiterates the safety protocol of the train. Joe says that all passengers should stay on the train and wait for assistance in case something bad happens. Hesitant at first, Joe takes the keys to the door for all of them to go outside. All the passengers jump down the train as they plan to walk to the next station. Joe advises the group to stick together while he leads him to the next station. While they walk in the forest, they keep hearing sounds in nearby bushes. Joe and Ellen volunteer to go to the forest to check what causes the noise. While Joe cannot believe what he's witnessing, he sees the driver's eviscerated body lying on the ground. Fearing for their shitty lives, they start running for their safety. While they run towards the train, a loud howl of what seems to be a werewolf is heard. Ellen advises the passengers to return to the train, as they do not know what deadly creature is lingering in the forest that might have killed their driver. While the old lady tries to get on the train as quickly as possible, the werewolf traces her dying hormones and bites her leg. Luckily, Joe and the passengers help her get onto the train. However, the old lady's leg is already injured and dripping with so much blood. While the annoying girl cries, the other passengers lift the old lady to get her first aid treatment. The group decides to be as quiet as possible so that the werewolf will not hear them. After hearing the werewolf's claws scratching the train, Joe concludes that the monster is gone as the scary sound disappears. This makes the group's breathing a lot easier. The passengers think that the old lady's situation is critical and must take her to the hospital as soon as possible. Ellen advises Joe to call the authority to get some immediate help. However, as Joe tries to contact the authorities, he fails as he thinks they have no signal. Suddenly, a technician passenger appears behind and talks about the train's engine. The technician says that he's knowledgeable about engines and thinks the fuel leak is the problem with their train. He theorizes that the line must have split when their train crashed earlier. The technician concludes that they cannot move if the problem is not fixed. Knowing about the information, Joe explains their terrible situation to the passengers. The old lady describes the creature as not merely an animal, but a man dressed in a wolf's skin, representing a werewolf. Suddenly, they all hear a noise on the other side of the train. Joe and the two brace themselves to approach it. While they walk carefully, they plan to attack the monster once it breaks the door. Surprisingly, as the door breaks, the fat guy passenger comes out of it. They help Mr. Fatty and explain everything to him. The old lady starts developing a fever because of her severe injury. Meanwhile, the blonde passenger approaches the annoying girl to consolidate her. The annoying girl appreciates the gesture and talks about her mother. While the two build a rapport, a loud noise is heard in one of the doors. The werewolf is back. Suddenly, the annoying girl's phone gets a reception. She answers the question, and her mother speaks. While they try to talk about their situation to the mother, the werewolf comes and breaks one of the windows. Then the monster pulls the annoying girl's leg, bringing her annoying ass outside. While they try to help the poor girl, they hear the werewolf mauling from above, and blood starts spilling on the nearby windows. The passengers scream at the top of their lungs because of shock. To save themselves, they move to the other side of the train to avoid the werewolf. While the passengers panic and argue, the old man advises that they should plan defense to protect themselves even more. Using the train's tools, the passengers collectively make an effort to create a barricade, blocking every entry point of the train. As the night goes deeper, the group conserves energy for whatever tragedies come. Meanwhile, Miss Selfish approaches Joe to consolidate him, saying that if the werewolf comes back, they need to be prepared if they still want to live their life to the fullest. He suggests that if the werewolf comes attacking again, they could save themselves by escaping outside and leaving the rest behind. Miss Selfish describes it as survival of the fittest. Suddenly, the old lady's health worsens as she throws out a lot of blood. Joe realizes that one of the group members is missing, specifically Miss Fatty. Joe goes to check on him. He dares Miss Fatty to leave the bathroom as soon as possible. However, Mr. Fatty is stuck like a greasy sandwich as the door cannot open. Suddenly, the werewolf attacks from above and beats Miss Fatty up, ending his greasy life. While the werewolf is preoccupied with Joe and Miss Fatty, Miss Selfish plans to leave the train. Trying to save himself, Joe tries to get back to the barricaded carriage, but it's already locked. Luckily, Joe can get back to the barricaded carriage with the help of the passengers. To block the werewolf from getting to them, they barricade the door with as much of their strength as possible. However, the werewolf just simply overpowers them. Seeing the creature up close, Ellen freezes and Joe saves her from impending death. The werewolf starts targeting Joe. To save her friend, Ellen takes a knife and stabs the werewolf in the stomach. The werewolf hits Ellen, making her fly and fall to the ground. Joe then quickly takes a weapon to try fighting back. While the werewolf is not looking, Joe attacks the werewolf from behind. To fight back, the werewolf returns to Joe, but luckily, Miss Selfish attacks the monster from behind, making it fall. As they knock down the werewolf, the passengers gather all their weapons and use them to hit the werewolf, severely injuring the monster. However, the werewolf rises and starts choking the technician. To finish the werewolf, the Indian guy takes his axe and hits the werewolf as hard as he can. While inspecting the body, the Indian guy concludes it is a werewolf, a hybrid between a man and a wolf. Suddenly, Miss Selfish recalls that every person that a werewolf bites would become infected and will transform into a werewolf too. With this information, every passenger focuses on the old lady with a wolf bite. The old man tells a story about a similar tragedy in the forest long ago. This implies that werewolf attacks in their area have been happening since the old times. Suddenly, the werewolf rises from the dead and howls. Joe takes the fire extinguisher and uses it as a weapon to finish and destroy the werewolf's face. In the next scene, a group of werewolves are seen lingering in the forest, planning their attack. This reveals that the werewolf's last howl signals the other werewolves to avenge him. Suddenly, they see the old lady's body is starting to look different. Miss Selfish concludes that the old lady is now transforming into a werewolf. Quickly, he takes a weapon, trying to kill the old lady before she fully transforms. However, the old man does not like the idea of killing his infected wife. As Miss Selfish is about to kill the old lady, the other passengers stop him. He then tries to force himself towards the old lady. Hitting everything in the way, Miss Selfish chokes the old lady to kill her. However, Joe suddenly comes to the scene and knocks Miss Selfish unconscious. To stop possible rampages, Joe dares the passengers to tie Miss Selfish and the old lady. To plan for escape, the technician will try to fix the train with his knowledge of engines. The technician instructs the group on what he will try to get the train moving and how the rest of the passengers can help him. The technician now goes out of the train with the Indian guy, trying to fix the fuel lines. Luckily, he successfully finds the leak. This gives the group a good chance of repairing the train. Suddenly, the Indian guy hears a sound in the forest. He goes to the forest with his flashlight to check what it is. He hears a woman's voice and follows it. As he points the flashlight to the top of the tree, he sees the annoying poor girl being eaten alive by a certain werewolf. The pack of werewolves now start chasing the Indian guy. The pack corners him, and they all eat him alive. Horror after horror, the old lady is now starting to transform into a werewolf. Miss Selfish dares the blonde passenger to free him so he can kill the old lady before she transforms. With one glimpse of light, the technician successfully repairs the train's engine. However, the pack of werewolves are now surrounding the train. While outside, he sees the werewolves, but luckily they go the other way. Meanwhile, the old lady acts differently and now fully transforms into a werewolf. With her power, she successfully breaks the ropes and sets herself free. Suddenly, a werewolf appears in the window and pulls the blonde passenger from behind with the help of Miss Selfish. With the train moving, the blonde passenger is now stuck in the forest, waiting for her impending death. The old lady werewolf does not recognize her husband anymore. She bites the neck of the old man, making blood spill in every direction. Miss Selfish takes his weapon and attacks the old lady from behind, making her fall down. The old man gets pissed off and hits Miss Selfish back. The old lady werewolf now comes for Miss Selfish. Meanwhile, the train suddenly stops, sabotaging the very hope they have. Joe and Ellen now run for their lives as the pack of werewolves linger in the forests. Joe saves Miss Selfish when he stabs the old lady werewolf with a giant spear on her back. Angry, Joe tries attacking Miss Selfish, but Ellen stops him. Suddenly, the pack of werewolves now enter the train. To protect themselves, Joe makes a barricade so that the werewolves cannot enter. Joe plans to get outside and escape. Miss Selfish realizes there would be a better chance for him to escape if one person stays behind on the train as bait. Miss Selfish then uses his weapon to attack Joe, hoping to knock him out. However, Joe fights back and wrestles with him. To save Joe, Ellen takes a sharp object and uses it to force Miss Selfish to let go. Ellen then cuts a certain part of Miss Selfish's face to stop him. Miss Selfish traps Joe and Ellen on the train while he escapes outside. 3 werewolves are now approaching Joe and Ellen. Luckily, the technician comes to the scene to save everyone. The technician brings a Molotov and throws it at one of the werewolves, making it burn. Meanwhile, Ellen forces the door open for them to escape. Joe and Ellen jump out of the train, while the technician is left behind and is killed. Joe and Ellen run for their lives. Suddenly, Joe decides to stay behind and distract the werewolves. Before facing the werewolves, he kisses his crush for one last goodbye, but without hormone let go. While crying, Ellen runs away as fast as she can. Although Joe fights bravely, he's simply overpowered by the 3 werewolves. One of the werewolves takes him down. He takes a sharp object to fight back and stabs the werewolf in its stomach. However, Joe is defeated when the werewolf bites his neck. The scene quickly transitions into the train station, with Ellen all bloody but already safe. On the other hand, Mr. Selfish is stuck in the woods. He stumbles and is attacked by a newly transformed werewolf Joe while the other watches. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.